right now it's time for a look at Grayson's grades. He takes the grades. He writes them all up at 973ESPN.com. After every Eagles game, good, bad, indifferent, who passed, who failed. We got a couple of Fs this week there. We got no A's there, Scott Grayson. A really sloppy, ugly game yesterday for the Birds, and I guess we start at the bottom. Everybody's talking about Agholor, and he got an F for you. This has been a couple of weeks now that he's been in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, and I think every fan is there. The frustration is just boiled over, and it's been building for weeks and weeks and weeks. And here he is. How many chances does he have to get? I just can't understand why messages haven't been sent. And I was frustrated hearing Doug Peterson after the game last night, like, we got to take care of him. Well, really, I mean, he's an NFL player. He's not living up to what he's supposed to be. And at what point do you need to send him a message, whether it's behind closed doors or by not giving him as many snaps, to tell him you better start performing or you're going to be on the outside looking in? And then it's interesting how after Agholor's comments and things now, Doug's changing his tone publicly, and Paul Turner suddenly being brought up. It's finally, at least there's being, actions being taken, and, it's going to be up to Agholor to respond. And he's just not getting it done. And the penalty alone was such a huge part of that game. You could see Peterson telling him, get up on the line, and Agholor's head remained focused on the line, on the ball. It's inexcusable mistakes and the drops, as I've started nicknaming them Agholor's, just continue to keep coming.
Yeah, now, I mean, when you get a guy, he has now kind of come out and said, look, this is a mental. I kind of indicated beforehand that, maybe Doug Peterson has too much on his plate, that he hasn't been able to sit down with his receiver and kind of talk to this guy to get a little bit of a handle on this a little earlier, that 10 weeks into the season, when it's not just 1 week he's had some issues. It's multiple weeks that he's not catching the football. It's multiple weeks that he's not blocking, multiple weeks that he's making mistakes. And now the coach says today, well, now that he's come out publicly and said this, maybe I need to talk to him.
Yeah, I think it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, look, Doug Peterson's forgotten a lot more football than I know or claim to know. And when you look at what's happened, we've been talking about this, Mike, week by week by week, as Agholor having mental issues. I remember bringing that up in the preseason, that it looks like he's having, mental issues on focusing on the ball. And those are things he's got to fix. And it's a tough thing to try to get out of your own head. I'm not trying to claim that that's easy to do, but that's something a coach should have recognized, whether it's Greg Lewis and it goes up the pipe to Doug Peterson. But at some point, somebody needs to sit down and talk with Agholor and try to get this figured out. And it's sad that it's something that has been so obvious and is now finally getting recognized by Peterson. But yeah, there's some things that need to be done. And I think, the blame goes on the head coach at that point.
Scott Grayson with us. We go through Grayson's grades, and you're talking about the head coach, Scott, through 3 games. We were praising Doug Peterson on his play calling and his approach to the game. And what grade did you give him this week, and how do you assess Doug Peterson these days?
I don't have it in front of me. I think I gave him a D. Which to me would be accurate. I think he's gotten away from what was so successful early on. When you go back to those first 3 games, Pete, and I was thinking about this yesterday when I was doing the grades, he was very good at scripting the first 15 plays. He seemed to have an understanding of what he was trying to accomplish.
You're talking about yesterday, right? Because I agree with you. I thought he came out and did they looked gritty. They run the ball left, my friend. Keep running left. You got something there.
Yeah, and he got away from it. He got away from everything. And I think, when you look back at what happened, I think Peterson over time is getting away from the things that are working because he's trying to reinvent the wheel. I think rather than let the game come to him and let the game dictate what needs to be done, he tries to put too much on Wentz. I thought they threw too much early on. I thought Doug asked Carson Wentz to do way too much against a really talented Seattle defense way too early in the game. You had a running game that was getting you 3, 4, 5 yards a chunk. Keep doing it. Take the pressure off of Wentz, and he never did. And then by the time they tried to go back to the run later in the game, it was too late. The game had gotten away from them. I just think Doug's play calling has taken a hit. I think he's trying to give Carson Wentz way too much responsibility. Remember, he's a rookie. Let the running game do a little bit more of the work and carry the load. The offensive line, for a change, has been blocking pretty well on running plays. And, again, you let them tee off on Carson Wentz, the pocket collapsed. They got hands on balls that were being thrown. And I just think that, Doug needs to go back to what he did earlier in the season. He needs to do some self-scouting. He needs to go back and watch some film and look at what they did early on in the season when they were being very effective, because they're not doing it now.
Yeah, Pete, there was something that we brought up on Friday's show where we said just keep running it. Even if you can't run it, just keep running it. And then later on in the game, if you're still close, use that Treggs play. It was almost like they listened to us. The problem was they used the Treggs play. I thought they pulled that out a little too early, that they tried to go a little, they got greedy early. They were running. Then they tried Treggs, which I was fine with, and I thought they did it a little early. But that was a blueprint that we kind of wrote up on Friday's show. Just keep running. And what do we say? Run behind Peters. Go right after the backup to Bennett, Frank Clark. Go after that side of the ball and just keep going, and then try to sneak a Treggs play late in the game. Unfortunately, they did it too early in the game, I thought.
And, Scott, your running back grade was a C, and tough to grade the running backs when two of them went out to injury.
Yeah, absolutely. But I like the way they all run, and I think that's why I graded them as a unit, because Sproles provides the change of pace and speed that I like if he's used in that manner. I think Matthews is running hard. Unfortunately, he's dealing with the injury now. I love the way Smallwood runs the ball, and even Barner. Like, those two guys hit a hole and they go after it, and they typically fall forward. When you do that as a running back, you're getting those 3, 4, 5 yards at a chunk, and you're in those cases you're winning downs, and that's what this offense needs. I just think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with. It sounds like Sproles is going to play despite the rib.
Yep.
We'll see what happens with Matthews. His history does not say he will come back from injury very quickly, so I would be a little more surprised if he does play this coming week. They do have the extra day to rest. But, I'm okay with that. I think Smallwood, I'm a little interested to see the guy get a little more carries and see what he can do if he can build into a rhythm.
Scott Grayson's got Grayson's grades. For the full list of the grades, go to 973ESPN.com. We'll throw another quick one at you because a lot of injuries throughout the course today. Peters left, then he came back. Big V looks like he's going to miss some time. So it looks like Barber's going to go to right tackle. He played left tackle some yesterday. Then Wiz is going to go into left guard. The Eagles line suffering some injuries. But how'd you think they played yesterday against that Seahawks defense?
You have to kind of consider, you're right, all the changes, guys going in and out, and the things that were going on. I thought that pass blocking was not great, as obvious by all the pressure Carson was facing. Some of that was on Carson. I think the coverage was so good he was holding the ball a little too long. But, this offensive line, I think, has been building into a bit of a rhythm, and that's where the injuries really you hate to see. I like the way that they were trending, and I think they just need to, unfortunately, they needed time to build that, and now they're going to reshuffle the deck, and here we go again. And then you got a few weeks, and you're going to get Lane Johnson back. So, unfortunately, one of the places you have to have consistency is on the line, and the Eagles have had very little of that throughout the season. And it's hard for a rookie quarterback to try to build confidence himself when the offensive line keeps changing as much as it is.
Scott, before we let you go, we should ask about the defense going into this game. A lot of people were of the belief that the Eagles defense was on par or in the same neighborhood as the Seahawks defense. What's your overview of Jim Schwartz and his unit?
I think Russell Wilson is the biggest X factor. I thought the front four was getting some pressure, but those guys are used to playing these quarterbacks who are not nearly as mobile as Wilson, so they can go right up the field, and they're used to trapping the quarterback, and that's how they work, and they feed off each other. Yesterday, they would get that pressure, and then, boom, Wilson escapes, buys time, and we saw it when Seattle played in Philly either last year or the year before. He's just so elusive, and he buys time, and you ask defensive backs to then have to cover for 3-4 extra seconds. It's so tough, and I just thought that the front four trying to get pressure wasn't working. I know we kind of say it a lot. I wish Schwartz would blitz a little more or he did a little early in the game, and I thought they were getting some pressure on Wilson that way. But they let Wilson get settled in. You can't do that, especially at home. And it was a tough task, a tough challenge to try to take on Russell Wilson, who's now healthier, as the announcers were saying during the game yesterday. You heard it and you could see it. He's a big different player. And I don't know what the Eagles defense could have done more of, because I kept thinking, well, bring blitzing, and then they bring the blitz, and Wilson would find the open guy. I just think, Jalen Mills early on, too, blew that. It was his assignment to stop that run that blew up for a 72-yard touchdown. there were, that, and I think you look at that and you look at the Agholor penalty. Those are two big plays that if Mills makes that tackle and if Agholor doesn't make that stupid penalty, is on the line of scrimmage, imagine how different that game might have been. The Eagles would have dictated a little bit more of the tone early on, and you never know what's going to happen. But I think defensively, Schwartz needs to make adjustments a little better. I've been disappointed in that aspect of it. And the front four, I thought they did a good job of trying to get upfield, but they just never contained Russell Wilson, and that proved to be a big downfall.
Yeah, and obviously Wilson yesterday, not great numbers, but made some plays. They made a couple of plays with their feet. They also, the tackling for the Eagles in the secondary, atrocious yesterday. Grayson's grades are posted at 973ESPN.com. No A's, couple of C's in the mix, got one B. One guy stood out. Check that out at 973ESPN.com. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.